In 2025, the world watched anxiously as a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon began to unravel almost as soon as it was declared. The agreement, brokered after months of intense negotiations and international pressure, was seen as a last-ditch effort to prevent another devastating war in the region. Yet, beneath the surface, mistrust and unresolved grievances simmered, threatening to ignite at any moment. The ceasefire terms were clear. Hezbollah was to withdraw its fighters north of the Litani River, creating a buffer zone, while Israel agreed to pull back its forces from Lebanese territory. United Nations peacekeepers were deployed to monitor the border, tasked with maintaining a delicate peace and ensuring both sides honored their commitments. However, the reality on the ground was far more complicated. Violations of the ceasefire were frequent and often went unpunished. Israel maintained a significant military presence in strategic areas, citing ongoing security threats from Hezbollah and the need to protect its northern communities from rocket attacks. Tensions escalated as Israeli airstrikes targeted what they described as Hezbollah infrastructure, including weapons depots and command centers. These strikes eliminated several key commanders, but also resulted in civilian casualties and widespread destruction, fueling anger and resentment among the local population. Hezbollah, though weakened by years of previous conflicts and international sanctions, refused to back down. Its fighters dug in, fortifying positions in urban ruins and launching sporadic attacks against Israeli patrols. The group's leadership vowed to resist any further incursions, framing their struggle as a defense of Lebanese sovereignty. As clashes intensified, civilians once again found themselves caught in the crossfire. Families fled their homes, seeking safety from the renewed violence. Towns and villages near the border were reduced to rubble, and the night sky was often lit by the flashes of artillery and gunfire. The ceasefire, once a symbol of hope, had crumbled, plunging the region back into a high-stakes conflict. The dream of stability in southern Lebanon dissolved before the eyes of the world, raising urgent questions about the future of peace in the Middle East, and the evolving role of America as both a mediator and a power broker in the region. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. In the wake of escalating tensions and mounting instability in Lebanon, the United States stepped forward with a bold diplomatic initiative. American officials, determined to restore calm and prevent further conflict, arrived in Beirut with a plan they believed could reshape the region's future. Their proposal was ambitious. The U.S. would broker a deal to stabilize Lebanon by addressing the root causes of violence and insecurity. At the heart of the American plan was a trade-off. Hezbollah would disarm, laying down its weapons in exchange for a full Israeli withdrawal from southern Lebanon, and a significant package of economic aid to help rebuild the country. The U.S. hoped this would not only end cross-border hostilities but also pave the way for a stronger, more unified Lebanese state. Behind closed doors, American diplomats pressed Lebanese leaders to seize this opportunity, emphasizing the potential for peace and prosperity. They argued that disarming Hezbollah would allow the government to reassert its authority and bring stability to a nation long fractured by internal divisions and external threats. For Lebanon's government, the proposal offered a glimmer of hope. Many officials saw it as a chance to finally assert state control over all armed groups, ending the era of militias and restoring the rule of law. The promise of economic aid was especially enticing, given Lebanon's dire financial crisis and the urgent need for reconstruction. But the plan faced a formidable obstacle. Hezbollah, the most powerful non-state actor in Lebanon, swiftly and unequivocally rejected the proposal. The group's leaders declared that their weapons were not negotiable. They were essential for defending Lebanon against Israeli aggression, and for maintaining the movement's identity as a force of resistance. Deputy Leader Naim Qassem took to the stage at a rally in Beirut, publicly dismissing the American plan. He insisted that Hezbollah would never surrender its arms under foreign pressure, and warned that any attempt to force disarmament would be met with fierce resistance. His words resonated deeply with supporters, reinforcing the group's readiness for confrontation. This outright rejection exposed a fundamental flaw in the U.S. strategy. American policymakers had underestimated the depth of Hezbollah's resolve and the extent of its popular support. Analysts quickly pointed out that any diplomatic effort that failed to account for Hezbollah's entrenched position was doomed from the start. As the plan unraveled, frustration mounted among American diplomats. The failure of the initiative laid bare the limits of U.S. influence in Lebanon, and the closed doors at the embassy became a symbol of diplomatic defeat. Meanwhile, Hezbollah's defiance only strengthened its standing among its base. Rallies erupted across Beirut and southern Lebanon, with supporters waving flags and chanting slogans in support of the group's resistance. The movement's enduring influence and ability to mobilize the masses sent a clear message to both local and international actors. In Washington, the collapse of the peace effort was met with concern and disappointment. News headlines highlighted the failure of American diplomacy, and officials were left to reconsider their approach to the region. The setback underscored the complexity of Lebanon's political landscape and the challenges of negotiating with groups deeply rooted in ideology and local support. Ultimately, the episode revealed just how difficult it is to disarm a group like Hezbollah, an organization whose identity is built on resistance and whose power is woven into the fabric of Lebanese society. The American proposal, though well-intentioned, was no match for the realities on the ground. After the collapse of the disarmament plan, the U.S. admitted its inability to halt Israeli operations in Lebanon. This public acknowledgement revealed the limits of American influence over its ally. Despite decades of positioning as a mediator, the U.S. couldn't compel Israel to act against its security interests. The admission marked a departure from traditional American rhetoric, exposing a power deficit. This honesty signaled a shift in U.S. diplomacy, acknowledging the need for new strategies. The era of unquestioned American hegemony in the Middle East appeared to be waning. The U.S. provides Israel with over $3.8 billion annually, primarily for military aid. Despite this financial support, the U.S. struggles to influence Israeli policy. Aid as leverage is an illusion. Israel's security decisions remain independent. American-funded military equipment is used in operations contrary to U.S. preferences. Historical examples show aid fails to translate into policy control. Domestic politics and shared strategic interests complicate attempts to condition aid. The aid package is seen as a security commitment, not a tool for manipulation. The U.S. paradoxically funds actions that contradict its diplomatic goals. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. Lebanon's history is a powerful testament to the complexities and limitations of U.S. intervention in the Middle East. Over the decades, the country has become a stage where global ambitions collide with local realities, often with tragic consequences. The American experience in Lebanon is a story of high hopes, difficult choices, and sobering lessons that continue to resonate today. The 1982 Lebanon War was a turning point, exposing the perils of direct military involvement in a region marked by deep-seated rivalries and shifting alliances. U.S. forces initially deployed as peacekeepers soon found themselves entangled in a conflict that defied easy solutions. The devastating bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut was a stark reminder of the dangers facing foreign troops on Lebanese soil. Decades later, the 2006 conflict between Israel and Hezbollah highlighted the immense challenges of diplomatic engagement. Despite international efforts to broker peace, violence erupted once again, displacing thousands and leaving deep scars on the Lebanese people. The war underscored how fragile ceasefires can be, and how quickly diplomacy can unravel in the face of entrenched hostilities. Throughout these conflicts, regional actors like Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah have pursued their own interests, often at odds with U.S. objectives. Their influence has shaped Lebanon's political landscape, making it even more difficult for outside powers to steer events or impose their will. The crisis of 2025 is only the latest chapter in this ongoing saga. Mass protests, political paralysis, and economic collapse have once again exposed the limits of American power. Despite diplomatic pressure and humanitarian aid, the U.S. finds itself unable to resolve Lebanon's deep-rooted problems. Lebanon remains a place where the ambitions of great powers are constantly tested by the realities on the ground. International summits and military deployments often give way to frustration, as local dynamics prove resistant to outside influence. Again and again, the United States is confronted with the harsh truth of its limited influence. Each new crisis brings renewed hope for change, but also a sobering recognition of the obstacles that remain. The region's complex social fabric, with its diverse communities and competing interests, defies simple solutions. Every attempt at intervention must contend with a web of historical grievances and contemporary challenges. Today's impasse is a stark reminder that in Lebanon, the path to peace and stability is never straightforward. The lessons of the past echo into the present, urging caution, humility, and a deeper understanding of the forces at play. The 2003 Iraq invasion was a bold exercise of American power. Initial military success gave way to a protracted insurgency. The US struggled to manage post-war realities fueling extremism. The intervention inadvertently expanded Iranian influence in the region. The Iraq War demonstrated the limits of military force for political objectives. The costly blunders eroded US credibility and public support for interventions. This experience informs Washington's reluctance to engage deeply in Middle Eastern conflicts. The Syrian civil war exposed the limits of American power. The US called for Assad's removal but hesitated to intervene decisively. Russia and Iran filled the vacuum, supporting Assad and shaping the conflict. The US shifted focus to combating ISIS, achieving limited success. America's influence over Syria's future diminished, overshadowed by rivals. The conflict illustrated a multipolar Middle East with reduced US sway. Regional actors pursued their own agendas, often contrary to US interests. The dream of a post-Assad Syria aligned with the West faded. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. The 2023-24 Gaza war highlighted America's limited influence over Israel. Despite US support, Israel pursued a military campaign with severe humanitarian consequences. American calls for restraint were largely ignored. Diplomatic friction peaked over Israel's planned operation in Rafah. Even the threat of withholding weapons failed to deter Israel. The Gaza war set a precedent for the current Lebanon crisis. US warnings and red lines appeared less firm. The failure to halt the Gaza campaign contributed to the ongoing conflict. The Middle East in 2025 reflects a shift in power dynamics. The US is no longer the unchallenged hegemon facing a multipolar region. Regional actors assert independence, often opposing Washington's wishes. Past policy failures and rival powers erode US leverage. The US remains powerful but struggles to unilaterally impose its will. Adapting to this new era requires realistic strategies and genuine partnerships. Acknowledging power limits is crucial for effective diplomacy. The US must navigate a complex and competitive Middle Eastern landscape. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia.